What's up, gamers? Now, when you think of the phrase iconic gaming sequels, many think of Street Fighter 2, Half-Life 2, Titanfall 2, but for me, and a lot of other losers, I think of Donkey Kong Country 2. Think about Nintendo. You have a gaming hit on your hands. What else are you gonna follow it up with? Famine? Yikes. Okay, think about Rare. Okay. Think about Nintendo in the 90s. Seriously? With all of this aside, RareWare planned to make a sequel even before Donkey Kong Country 1 was a huge hit, but it became basically a guarantee as DKC 1 became the third best-selling SNES game. And I mean, Rare immediately started working, as the sequel came out only a year later on November 21st, 1995. They obviously wanted to expand upon the original in every way, taking what worked, reworks to what didn't, some scrapped concepts, and a bit of new stuff blended together to make something amazing. And that's about it. No crazy facts, just the devs wanting to improve. I mean, it was a surefire success. There was no way they could do something that was unexpected at that point. Like, I don't know. Remove the main character? That's exactly what they did, huh? That's exactly what they did. Damn it! Rare wanted to make a new character for the game, so they either had to take Diddy out or the cooler and riskier path of taking Donkey Kong out. I mean, this was his franchise with his name on the box, but they let Diddy take center stage as a hero, with this coming in again when I eventually go over the completion process. The full title ended up being Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Kong Quest. You see, right there, the silly little goofy pun that ends up making people think the title is any of these three things? You're just so funny, Rare. I mean, in my personal opinion, the title should have been Diddy Kong's Quest, as I feel like it's what most people assume the title is, before seeing Rare misplace the apostrophe S, but said, fuck it, who cares? But in the end, it's not the end of the world and truly just a nitpick from me. Back to that new character. They decided to make Diddy a sidekick in the form of their girlfriend, Dixie, which brings up a lot of scary questions as they both have the last name of Kong. I just hope it's a shocking coincidence. In my opinion, Dixie Kong is the best and most fun character to play as in the original trilogy, as with their ponytail, you're able to glide across the level. This just makes them a better version of Diddy, which kinda sucks in my opinion since they didn't balance it out by giving Diddy any unique abilities of his own, because Rare didn't want to make it to where any sections were unbeatable with a specific character. Sure, you don't need to play as Dixie, but give me a choice any day between these two apes, and I'm choosing the pink one. This made me just constantly switch out for Dixie and use Diddy as cannon fodder when I knew I was gonna get hit. This just made Diddy feel pointless in his starring role. Enough negatives. Dixie is made to look like the most stereotypical gender opposite of Diddy Kong. He wears red, she wears pink. He has a tail, she has a ponytail. He wears a baseball cap, she wears a beret. The female demographic's favorite hat of choice. Jokes aside, Dixie is a great addition to the franchise, and it's just really fun to use when platforming. And clearly, everyone else thought so too, as they continued to appear in future games, eventually getting to star as the hero themselves in the third game. Though they aren't the only Kong to help Diddy on their journey, as Funky Kong returns to help transport you across the map, and Cranky, who's here to berate you again for not being as cool and awesome as him, along with giving you level secret hints if needed. Debuting in this game is Cranky's wife, Wrinkly, who takes over for Candy Kong and helping you save, as that's just too questionable, let's say, and a game made for kids at least. They also operate Kong College, which just serves as another way to receive hints. Finally, there's Swanky, who's my personal favorite, as they operate a trivia game show to gain extra lives, which in my opinion is extremely fun and actually challenging if you get a more specific question. These actions all cost banana coins, which you can just easily find throughout the game or get as end of level bonuses. Moving on to the story. The game just doesn't have one. Now, you might expect this to be a negative, but just like the first, it doesn't need it. I'm glad the game doesn't have some in-depth story as it tries to be what it's not. You can just hop right into the gameplay as that's what shines. Though you can turn around in the first level to find out why Donkey Kong is missing. He's been kidnapped and K. Rool is back, now with a new look from whatever they had left over at Party City. DKC2 actually kind of keeps this consistent, with there being a bit of a pirate theme throughout. Not just K. Rool, but most of the enemies are pirates as well, being decorated with bandanas and peg legs. Even the first world takes place on a pirate ship, though this really is just a callback to the first game, as that's where we ended last time. I love the contrast between the worlds and levels between the two games. In the first, you're the one being invaded. It's your island. The levels are brighter and more cheerful, at least until you get to the end when K. Rool has taken over. The environment, while dangerous, seems as though it's trying to help you rather than hurt you. Contrast this to DKC2, where we're entering enemy territory at Crocodile Isle. The environment is hostile, especially with all the thorns. There's graveyards and a volcano. Hell, the hub world looks like it's trying to kill you. Something quite strange is that, like the first, the levels are divided into little sections. Yet, unlike the first, these themes for the sections barely cross over into the actual levels. Take Crazy Kremland as an example. I looked at this and was like, oh, this is gonna be sick. There's gonna be some theme park centered levels. Yet as you progress, the only actual theme park levels are the two minecart centered ones. In fact, there's more beehive themed levels in this section, with there being 3. What ends up happening is that the level themes are more split into how the level is played, rather than where it takes place within the game. Theme park is minecarts, swamp involves a lot of jumping across gaps, brambles have tight platforming / navigation, mines involve you climbing to the top, etc. While there are some levels that fit the theme, more of them don't, which makes me question why even have these world themes. I mean, actually I do get why, as it helps split up progression and keeps players from playing the same levels back to back. But Rare could have at least tried to make the themes more consistent with the levels themselves. The levels themselves look amazing. Like, even with today's standards in mind, the levels are beautiful. And in my mind, what backgrounds should try to be more often. They just capture that excellent blend of not looking bland while not distracting the player either. You can bring up a picture of any level in the game, and I can easily distinguish what's part of the background and what's interactable. The environment and what's able to be platformed on both pop out at you, but don't end up in unjustified deaths. And it sounds like a joke with how much I'm emphasizing this, but the backgrounds truly are stunning. They make the world feel lived in, as opposed to something like Super Mario World, which came out around this game, where the backgrounds are flat. Sure, there's detail, but compare it to this, and the amount of depth within these paintings of sprites is unmatched. The only true problem within them is just hardware limitations, as the backgrounds stay the same throughout the course of the level, as opposed to evolving as you progress. Paired with this is the incredible soundtrack composed by David Wise, who returns from the first. He did amazingly well. In my opinion, DKC2 has one of the best soundtracks in gaming, as so many tracks are so easily memorable, yet when you play the game, it makes you still be surprised that they're from this game. Everything just fits perfectly. As the game takes a more tense role, there's less goofy tracks as opposed to the first game. While we still have the few, they're typically paired with other Kongs or the minigame themes such as these. The more purposefully tense tracks like the bosses or the final few levels actually made me feel intimidated, even if there was nothing to worry about. Typical levels have amazing music within, as it just keeps pushing you forward, whether more somber or fast-paced. I mean, the save file select music goes hard. That's how well David Wise did. But the two best tracks in the game have to be Forest Interlude and Stickerbrush Symphony. A bit of background information, a while ago on YouTube there used to be a video originally posted by Taya777 that featured Stickerbrush Symphony in the background. Nothing else, just the music and a loop of Bramble for the video. This occasionally kept popping up into people's For You pages, yet despite the Japanese title and strange thumbnail, people still consistently clicked on it. So the internet labeled it the checkpoint, where everyone would just write down where they're at in life whenever it got recommended to them. The video eventually got taken down sadly because Nintendo doesn't know how to be good to their fans, and was later re-uploaded by someone else. The point is that this music is so surreal, whether it be in some of the hardest levels in DKC2, or when people are at the hardest parts of their life. It makes people calm, it helps them reflect on where they're at in their journey, it makes them feel emotion, which is what any great piece of music strives to do, and it just shows how excellent the soundtrack for Donkey Kong Country 2 is, and David Wise is a genius in my opinion. It's super interesting how the more stereotypically hard levels in these games have the more calm and relaxing music, maybe in a sense to soothe you out to stop you from rage quitting. I mean, you ever go to commit several violent crimes but Beethoven starts playing? It totally kills the mood. Such as with Aquatic Ambience in the first, that had more relaxing music rather than stressful. Though in my opinion, the minecart levels were what was truly annoying, but who knows, that could have been due to the music choices. Speaking about that though, I wonder how the minecart levels evolved into the sequel. The water levels, like last time, are super surprising with how well done they are. Typically the low point in every game, especially platformers like Sonic or Crash, I find DKC's water levels actually fun. Sure, there are problems that are typical, such as the floaty controls and hard to avoid enemies, but with the more open areas provided, it makes the challenge more fair. Though this doesn't mean they're perfect. It can get super annoying trying to pass by a bunch of pufferfish just for them to explode and end up hitting you anyways. The trade-off is taking your time to try to avoid them by baiting the projectiles, but this time adds up and quickly gets boring/repetitive in my opinion. On a more positive note, the two coolest water levels can be defined as fucking with the lights off and oh shit, no. I love how they're two opposite sides of the spectrum, with the first encouraging more precision as you can't fully see your surroundings, while the other encourages you to go as fast as possible to make sure you don't die, with both being interesting challenges. I wish more of the water levels experimented with the gameplay. While I understand why they went with a more typical experience, it just makes you wonder what could have been, which just shows how good the water levels are if you're actively wanting more. The minecart levels were greatly refined in this game, with them taking out what didn't work, such as the barriers at the end of a track and enemies flying towards you. This alone makes the minecart levels so much more enjoyable, but they also refine the platforming challenges within, allowing for a lot more leniency. Instead, they make the challenge focused on your fast reflexes, but this time in a different, less punishing way. You see, you have to choose whether or not you should jump to certain barrels, which can help you by increasing your time before the ghost gets you and open gateways, or they can hurt you by doing the reverse. The mechanic all focuses on how fast you can detect what kind of barrel it is, which in my opinion offers a great yet fair challenge. I never got overly frustrated as I never felt my deaths as unjustified. I'm happy with just how much the sequel was able to improve, making these levels actually fun. Replacing the minecart levels as the new hardest part of the game are the Bramble levels. I briefly mentioned them earlier when I talked about the music attached to them. These are insanely difficult levels. They feature precise platforming sections that are super challenging, and with these levels taking a while to beat, you'll be dying frequently. But I'm glad these levels exist. While a lot of the deaths might feel cheap, and they are cheap, trust me, I do like that there's that test of skill throughout the game in order for you to get better. It also made me realize how much you're able to do, such as jump midway while falling, which I otherwise would have never found out as no other levels require you to do it. The Bramble sections encourage more precise and thoughtful movement, which I greatly appreciate, as it helps keep the game engaging, offering those little spikes of challenge. The game on its own sports a pretty high difficulty, where you're going to be getting quite a few game overs. Not just a few, to be honest. A lot. especially if you aren't playing with the ability to rewind, which in my opinion, I greatly recommend you do play with that feature, as without all of the cheaper deaths the game throws out will stop being a fun challenge and chance to experiment, and just a slog of going through what you've already got past countless times over. This by no means makes the game easy though, as you'll still be constantly dying. Just now it gives you more room to try out new things, and cuts out the sluggish parts of the game. I mean, some of the enemies can feel super inconsistent for what hurts you and what's gonna hurt them. Add this on to them being on smaller platforms, it can make them super annoying when you're trying to get through the level. But maybe this challenge is necessary in order to lengthen game time and just make sure you truly master the game's mechanics before you beat it. I know I chose to sometimes forego the rewind ability in order to truly feel as though I triumphed over a section, and when you're doing good and flying through a level with no cheap hits, it can feel amazing and super satisfying. But sadly, a lot of the game suffers from that 90s make the game difficult to artificially increase playtime, so you might just feel as though DKC2 is lacking that refined learning curve. It just varies, so an argument can be made on whichever way you want to play the game, so it's up to you. Some of the funnest parts of the first game return, with that being the animal buddies. While we have some helpers like Clapper and Glimmer in the water levels, they don't really count. The playable buddies include the returning Rambi, who easily defeats all enemies with his horn, and is amazing to play as due to how quickly you can breeze through levels when playing as him. On Guard, who's basically a must in the water levels, as he alleviates a lot of the struggles with enemies and just helps you move quicker throughout. These two basically act the same as in the first game, just both now with a supercharge which opens secret passages. Squawks is back and is used a lot for tight in-air movement, with the new ability of shooting projectiles to get rid of enemies, which in my opinion kinda sucks, as it's hard to properly line up shots, so you're best just rapid firing until you land a hit randomly. The new animals include Ratley, who acts a lot like Winky from the first game, where he can do large jumps to help with platforming and reaching secrets. Just for this one, you kinda have to charge it up, which can be quite annoying. Finally, Squitter is the most unique, as you're able to make platforms with webs, and the game does a lot of interesting things with this, focusing on making you anxious as you struggle to place more webs before the one you're currently on runs out. The animal buddies are great, as they take the ones that were the best from the first and make them even better. Then for the new animals, they manage to make them still feel useful and intuitive. Something strange is that half the time you aren't riding the animal, you're just playing as them, which didn't make sense to me why they went through the effort of splitting it up, having certain times you ride them and others where you just control them. Also, have you ever actually tried getting an animal to do something for you without forcing them? It doesn't work. Come on, do my taxes already. Compared to the first game, the mini-bosses are shockingly difficult, where in each you'll be tasked with surviving an onslaught of attacks for quite a while, before having the chance to throw something at them to do damage. This might sound like the standard for a boss fight at first, but these fights last a long time, and if you die, you'll be forced to restart it all over again, which can sometimes put you back 3+ minutes worth of time, so it can get pretty annoying and pretty stressful when you're just about to beat them. The designs for 3 out of the 4 continue what the first had done, which is basically just souped up basic enemies. This is okay, I guess. I just wish they went more out there and experimented more with the designs, or at least used some kind of more uncommon enemies, like the ghost from the minecart levels or this cloaked guy from the graveyard. The other mini-boss, Cleaver, captured this, being an original design, and it had to be my favorite fight as it felt super refined, yet still challenging with its platforming in order to escape him. I just wish more were like this. After this point are the spoilers you might actually care about, so if you intend on playing the game fresh, 1, while you're listening to me talk about it, and 2, if you care about things like the final boss and collectibles, I recommend leaving now. Anyways, upon scaling Crocodile Isle, you reach K. Rool's helicopter, where you have the chance to fight him. This is the ideal final boss for a sequel in my opinion, as it references the first game's fight while still being original. This time you have to not only avoid his charges like the first, but also Captain K. Rool's new shotgun, which fires cannonballs and colored gases you have to dodge. While not fatal, each of the gases have a unique effect on the Kongs, which makes the fight much harder until it wears off, so I recommend dodging them if you can. You'll eventually have the chance to put a cannonball back into his blunderbuss to hurt him, do this a couple of times, and you beat him, congratulations. We free Donkey Kong and roll credits, showing the names of every creature that made the game and every creature in the game. Thankfully, no fake out ending this time. Cranky Kong eventually shows up to call us slackers for missing a bunch of collectibles.
Oh, like you could do better, you bag of bones.
Cranky Kong doesn't give us the label of a true video game hero until we find all DK hero tokens, showing a leaderboard with Mario, Link, and for some reason, Yoshi? Maybe he was more popular in the 90s, but in my opinion, a Samus or Kirby cameo should have been here instead. Anyways, they're scattered around with one in every level, hidden by doing some platforming challenge or just finding a secret path. Overall, they aren't hard to find, just more tedious. The true challenge in completing the game is getting all of the Creme coins, with there being quite a few in each level hidden quite well. You can get there by finding bonus barrels, which lead to different minigames, or you have the chance to win the coin by beating a platforming challenge, defeating all of the enemies in the stage, collecting a set of stars, etc. These were all pretty fun and nice things to look out for while playing the game. Just with how secret some entrances are, you'll basically need to look it up unless you want to spend another 10 hours just searching. We need 15 Creme coins to open a passage to the game's final area, the Secret World, and with each area entrance costing that much, we need to find a total of 75 throughout the game to unlock every level in this area. You know how I said the Bramble levels were the hardest parts of the game? These are contenders for that spot as well, as it's actually here that some of the hardest platforming can be found, with a few sections being really hard to avoid enemies mixed with tight platforming. Though at the same time, these levels are super fun and can be seen as a victory lap for the main game, as they're very refined difficulty-wise in my opinion, and I never felt as though it was unfair when I died. I enjoyed each level heavily, as it seemed like it was here the devs truly got to play around and do whatever they wanted, with my favorite level out of the bunch being a marathon of the animal buddies. Anyways, upon, if you want, getting the last few DK hero tokens through minigames for some reason, and beating each of the Secret World levels, the Crocodile Mountain opens revealing K. Rool to still be alive.
Ah!
Jokes aside, this fight is shockingly easy, as you just need to take a while avoiding attacks just to only feed K. Rool's blunderbuss one cannonball this time to defeat him, making this fight a cakewalk. Sending K. Rool flying into some energy source, hopefully finally killing him, right? Right? We see Donkey Kong, Diddy, and Dixie stare off into the distance, and if you got all 40 DK hero tokens, we get to finally get Cranky Kong's approval as he labels us a hero. Finally, and he asks us to take care of him and Donkey Kong as they're aging. DKC2 is amazing, and in my opinion, the perfect sequel, as it improves upon literally everything from the first game. Even at the game's more difficult points, I couldn't help but be happy playing, as it's clear how much passion Rare put into the game. With the gameplay, graphics, and especially the music, I understand why people think of this first when hearing words like SNES, Donkey Kong, or even sequel, as despite its few flaws, the game truly shines, and it sets itself apart as a model piece.
I enjoyed Donkey Kong Country 2 so much, and I can't wait to finish the trilogy with the third game. I mean, the only way they could do something truly surprising at this point is if they replace Diddy Kong with some weird baby. Maybe I can wait.